this video will be covering what I did in the rehearsals 1 and 2 for Citizenship. First of all, in the first rehearsal we worked on we were asked originally to bring some stuff that is reminiscent of the 2005 2000s to 2005 era of music and clothing and just how people acted, basically, just simple stuff like that. So the first scene we worked on the first scene in the first rehearsal we did scene 1 and 2, and the first scene it's a scene between Tom and Amy, and we were asked to say by the director. We got asked, where is the scene? Is it in school? Is it in public? Where is it? And because of the fact that Amy is doing Tom's ear, piercing it, I decided. Well, we said that it was going to be not in public, and we were asked. We were asked, where is it? Where is the scene taking place? And because I noticed that in the second scene, Amy gets asked by some people. This was something I said to her. I hear Tom was around yours last night. So that is pretty directional to the point that Tom was at Amy's house. So we decided that it's Amy's house, and because of the fact that she's doing his ear, trying to pierce his ear, I decided that they weren't going to be necessarily like in public. Like, they were going to be quite private in her room. And so, because of the fact that they were at Amy's house, and the fact that we were in her bedroom, we had to like think about how to act a certain thing. So how we'd do things in because of that scenario, and so because of the fact that when she starts piercing his ear, he starts to scream in pain. Because they don't want Amy doesn't want her parents to hear, or by any chance. That's how she acts in that sense. So she needs to act in that way that she needs to act in that way because of how I've just reacted to having my ears pierced. And one of the things that happens as well when I do have my ear pierced is my ear starts to bleed, and then I pass out. And so, because I know I need to do this, I did some research, a small bit of research, and I watched a scene from Ricky Gervais's David Brent Life on the Road, and there's a scene in that where he's getting a tattoo, and he starts to bleed because that's his opportunity to get tattoos. So he starts to bleed, and then he gets told by the tattoo artist, it's halfway done, he's like, do you want to see it? And then he's like, no, I don't want to see it. And then he looks at it and goes, is that blood? And then he passes out. And the way he kind of passes out is he just kind of closes his eyes and just starts to slip out of the chair before he gets held onto by the tattoo artist. So the way I did it was, when I know I needed to pass out, I channeled that sort of look in how he passed out. So I'd look at the thing and just kind of close my eyes, slip back into my chair, and then fall out of the chair, land on the floor. So I feel like at least that will hopefully create some sort of proper realistic sense of how I passed out. Then there's there's a part where I have a go, and I say the line, fucking stupid idea letting you do that. I should have gone to a fucking professional. Fucking go to somebody who knows what they're fucking doing instead of letting you fucking fuck the whole thing up. And there's a lot of swearing in that. So, but that phrase, that line is quite. It can easily be lost, and I really don't want to be losing it. So one thing I need to do is I need to start saying all the pronunciations, all the letters, to start saying it in RP, and make sure I say it properly, and saying all the letters fucking stupid idea letting you do that. I should have gone to a fucking professional. Fucking go to somebody who knows what they're fucking doing instead of letting you fucking fuck the whole thing up. Right there, it's hopefully seems a bit clearer. And then we move on to the end of the scene where, after I've just had a go at her, Amy starts saying about this is why she cuts herself because she feels so useless. So, and then I start to hug her and try to comfort her while I just sat on the floor. And what I originally had done is, because I wasn't really 100% on the chemistry real quick, I was just kind of very slight hugging and not really proper. And so, that originally, I thought that maybe that'd work because of the fact that their relationship isn't that close. So they're not necessarily like it's quite an uncomfortable setting, I guess you could say. But then we look back at it, and after performing it for my NYT audition, when they're getting the feedback, I was told that that scene could have been, that small section could have been better. So I'd say better in a sense of hugging her for longer, actually trying to comfort her. So I did that, and it works better. Moving on to scene 2 now. Scene between Tom and Gary. Now, one thing I wanted to do in this was to try and get my character to try and come across as the sort of person that changes to match certain people. He's a bit of a heart character, so I wanted to give him that sort of sense, give him that sort of idea that he changes around certain people. And with Gary, I wanted him to kind of reflect how Gary is. So because we're sat on a bench and we're quite laid back and whatever, I noticed that Gary's feet were set out like this in a way. They were kind of outstretched. One foot was off to the side and one foot was like straight forward. So what I did, I looked at that and thought, oh, I'll do the same. Have my feet stretched out, but I'd my right foot. So whereas he had his left foot forward and his right foot off to the side, I would have my right foot forward and my left foot off to the side, kind of mirroring how Gary is. Okay, now they're smoking weed, and whereas Gary is quite slow and relaxed with everything that he says, Tom is also relaxed in that sense, but he's not as relaxed and not as high as Gary is in the slightest. So my words are not as slow and slurred as his is. Now moving on towards the later on, halfway through the scene, when Ray and Steven come in and start making fun of Gary, and they get me to 1 second. So halfway through the scene, Ray and Steven start trying to get Tom involved and start trying to insult Gary and make fun of him. So Tom, when this happens, he starts to fold his arms, and this is because I feel he's a heart character, and that's a thing that's noted with heart characters, is that they remain a lot to the chest. So, but because I've done this, I'm just trying to. So I feel like Tom is trying to just kind of do what's best for everyone, and not really have himself like the center of things. And so then they get into a fight, Tom and Gary, and I push Gary, Gary pushes Tom, Tom punches Gary, and then Gary punches Tom in the stomach so hard that he falls down. And because of this, because it's a proper punch and it's quite an effective one, I wanted it to be as effective as possible. So I just told Noah that to do the part properly, I want him to just punch me in the stomach as hard as he can. Actually punch me. And doing this will create that it will create that realism and that naturalism that is needed to empathize, to really show the realism of this whole scene and show that I'm actually being affected by this, because I've never been I've never really been punched in the stomach as hard as like to the point where I fall down. Like, well, I don't think I could really reenact it, but being punched in the stomach actually is making it 10 times easier because I just need to be punched in the stomach, and then I just, my actual reaction to that is my actual reaction. So moving on now. Later on, we moved then on the next lesson. Second, this is the second rehearsal. Moved on to scene 3 between Tom and the clerk, and this scene is a bit. We raise a lot of questions with this scene because we need it because Tom asks a lot of personal questions and gets really personal with the clerk. So we needed to think about, is it a sexual scene? Is it a scene that shows Tom's true intentions, that he thinks he's attracted to the clerk, or is it just an innocent scene that is whatever? And I wanted to go for a more innocent approach. I don't want it to be seen as a kind of sexual scene. So halfway through, when we're doing it as well, we looked at the different objectives in the scenes. So the first objective starts from "I'm still bleeding, sir," to the clerk saying, "Put the paper over there, lean your head over there." So him telling me to do that, he thinks his objective is done. His objective for that moment in time is done. Until a little pause. We were told that acting is when the talking stops, or something along those lines. So it's not just all talking; it's how to react when you're not saying anything. So it goes from put the paper over there, lean your head over there. All right. It feels really weird, sir, is when the new objective starts. So Tom is quite a childish person. He can be when he feels like it, because one of the things that Tom says is, "Oh, I thought so. I just dripped blood in the folder," because he's done that because the clerk has told him to do a certain thing, so he decides to blame him for it, and he's just kind of just being a bit childish, really. And so later on, the objective ends at "doing my best," and then it goes, and there's a bit of a pause that then leads to Tom asking the personal question of, "Are you married, sir?" And again, it's just an innocent scene. It's none of it is meant to be like romantic. Tom doesn't find the clerk attractive in any way, but he's just wondering. He literally says, "I was just wondering." Later on, the clerk has a headache, and then Tom says, "I can do a massage," which so he's doing that because I didn't want it to be sexual in any way. I just wanted it to be we looked at it and the scene is Tom. The way I look at it is there's two objectives. There's the main objective of a character, and for my main objective, Tom's main objective throughout the entire play is uh, is to find out if he's gay or straight. So, but then in individual scenes, you've got your main objective and you get your side objective. And Tom's main objective in this scene is to stop doing his coursework because he doesn't want to do it. And then side objective, his side objective is to find out if he's gay or straight and ask someone. And so so when he tells him he can do a massage, it's still an innocent scene. He's just trying to he's still trying to get his main objective, which is to stop doing the coursework. He doesn't want to have to keep doing it. So then he does it, and we were speaking about how to do it, and we decided that we do it as it's just a thing, and then both the characters, the clerk and Tom, both start kind of almost realizing what they're doing and how it looks. And what we were told is that thinking about anything else, thinking about something completely random, is better than not thinking at all. So this I can actually show the audience that we're thinking about something. And I was just thinking about the scene from Joker, but apparently we were able to. It showed that we were thinking, and the audience doesn't know what we're thinking, so we were able to think about anything else. Okay, so that all happens, and after the massage is stopped, uh, he asks he's trying to ask if he's gay. He's trying to get straight to his side objective, and which is also leading to his main objective, which is asking the clerk, like, what do you do if you're gay? Like, I don't know if I'm gay, sir. So, so that's that. But then at the end of the scene, because we're not really worked on this on the last bit of the scene, but towards the end of the scene, the clerk tells Tom to just go home, and this is all of a sudden become the succession of Tom's main objective in this scene, which is to stop doing the coursework. He just wants to go home, and he's happy to just go home. So, yeah. And then in scene 4, it's back to Gary and Tom. Now, we didn't want this to be just like another mirrored scene, a mirrored image of. We didn't want this to just be like the same. Oh, it's just these two again. Like, it's just going to be the same scene. So what we did was we swapped places, and this time I'm not mirroring Gary's feet. 'Cause I'm not trying to be like him. I'm just trying to get my point across. I'm just trying to get my objective, which is to find out if I'm gay. And Gary's main objective in the scene is to find out what me and Amy did that one time when we had sex, which we didn't. Which is also why Tom is not sitting like Gary in this scene, I reckon, because of the fact that he's trying to be honest. He's just trying to be truthful now, and tell him the truth, and that the truth is that they didn't have sex at all. So once again, we never really went through the scene in too much detail, so I can't really talk about that right now. But over to scene 5, this is a scene we worked on quite a bit. Over to scene 5, again taking place in Amy's house in her bedroom. Tom is not necessarily asking, but more telling Amy to do his hair, change it to baby blonde. So his objective for this, his main objective is to he has like the objective of trying to get his hair dyed, but also has like the secret objective of trying to have sex with Amy. So this is almost like an excuse to it's almost an excuse to take his shirt off to look sexy for Amy. But Amy starts talking about affirmations that she's supposed to be doing, and when Tom asks, "What's that?" and she says that she has to write "She's surrounded by love" so many times, and and when he finds out what she has to do and why she has to do it, he almost goes sarcastic in a way because of the fact that she says she has to do it because she cut herself again. He asks why, and she says, "I don't know," basically. She says, "I don't know." And then Tom replies with, "You gotta know," which is almost like a reference to the first scene where Tom originally tells Amy that he's not sure what he is. She asks, "What are you? Are you gay, are you straight?" And he says, "I don't know." And she says, "You gotta know." So Tom saying "you gotta know" to her about cutting herself is almost a sarcastic. It could almost be seen as like a sarcastic sort of response. And when she walks out to go and get water, and a bowl of water and a towel, Tom removes his shirt and decides to set himself up in a sexy pose, which could be seen as quite a funny scene because he's just trying to find any sort of pose to position himself in, so he can take his shirt off. And he says, I took my top off." He's going from his objective of dyeing his hair literally straight to, "I'm just going to try and have sex here." It's almost like dyeing his hair isn't his real objective, and he's just trying to have sex with her in any way, until they get interrupted by Chantel, Kerry, and Alicia coming in, and they start talking about things, and then she tells him to go ahead and dye his hair. Like, go ahead, go get your hair dyed. So he does this, puts his head over the bowl. She pours the water on it, and it starts to. 1 second. So she pours the water on his head, and it starts to burn his head. And of course, when you get burnt, when you're getting hurt by someone, you instantly try and pull away from them. It's an animal instinct to just get away from whatever's hurting you. So after this happens, I jump up, I go over to the side of the room, and I start trying to scratch my head because it's really hurting. And then after all this happens, or after all this stuff happens, and I've realised that I've been burnt. There's red marks all over the back of my head. Chantel opens her mouth and says, "Are you gonna shag? Because we can leave. You're gonna shag." Which then just basically it pushes Tom over the limit, and then rather than being necessarily being like angry or frustrated or defensive about it, he just gets annoyed and just says, "No, we're not gonna shag," and then I walk off, and it's just not gonna happen. And I'm not necessarily defensive about it anymore because I'm just fed up and I just want to go home. That's how I see it happening. So overall, that scene is interesting.